that seriously, that there would be retribution. But don't worry, I have time to get myself right with God, and which I feel is fine personally, but again, not from a public library standpoint. So anyway, they missed their deadline. They have some sort of clerical error to get on the ballot in November. So then they file a recall the county clerk for 40 years of election fraud and the library trustees being elected to the board. It's fraudulent. Does this sound familiar?
When you said you moved the library board meetings, but they were still able to come to those, is that right? Or
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they did continue to come, so this was a regular thing, them showing up.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, we were in the August board meeting, and in that one, same exact rhetoric about protecting the children. And I got threatened with if I was to harm any small child, a millstone would be put around my neck and I would be cast into the sea. And then let's see, another man biblically cursed me and then said, I would be surprised if you weren't already experiencing these things. That was fun. And then the woman who threatened with the millstone went out and blew the shofar horn again. And she did show up at one point in July and actually blow the shofar horn at the front of the library, at the back of the library, and then drive off. And at that time, we didn't know who it was. And we had turned the security footage over to the police department, and they couldn't figure out who it was because she had screens on her license plates.
Okay. You mentioned the American Redoubt. For people in the audience who may not know what that is, what at least as far as you understand it, what is that movement?
So the American Redoubt is made up of Christian nationalist patriots who are anti-government, anti-tax faction who want to take over Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the western parts of Washington and Oregon, and create what they consider the American Redoubt. It is very much an extremist ideology, and they're an interesting and scary group of people. There's some realtors who market specifically to people who would be considered preppers or, tired, Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, the Patriot Front, all of these types of people who have a really extreme ideology where in one of the real estate videos is where women are nurturing and men are strong and productive. And so, women shouldn't work, women shouldn't vote, we should be home nurturing children. Everybody's homeschooled, we grow gardens, and the men go out and do all of the work and hunt and fish and, get rid of schools and libraries and museums and the Restorium. They're actually going after our Restorium, which is our old folks' home.
Oh, okay. You mentioned at the beginning that your area is a very conservative area, but I am assuming that not everybody in the community was aligned with these groups that you're talking about. In fact, one of the pictures we even have, they had a quiet protest, a read-in, and there were, self-identified conservatives in that supporting you and the library. But do you have any sense of sort of proportionally in the community, you had their support versus was the group that was attacking you a vocal minority? Do you think they did represent a large portion of the community? What's your sense of that?
So I really think that it is conservative, to be sure, but in that more traditional sense of what a conservative is, not the group that we're dealing with are radicalized, and so that should never be. When I say Christian nationalist, that is not to say that this is Christianity. This is their faction of it, which is, if you have to believe exactly like they believe, or else you're a part of the problem. So if you don't believe or go to their church and you go to, say, the Lutheran church, then you're a part of the problem. So we need to, make sure that we understand that. So they are conservative, and we have a much larger support, but what has happened is so many people, they don't get involved, right? And that's what's unfortunate. So you go about your life, you're busy, you just enjoy your neighbors, and this is just the library's always been here, our schools have always been here, people don't get involved. Well, people who are intent on taking over have done so. So they get in, and they're directed to get involved in local politics. It is absolutely their imperative. They are told to vote. They are told how they're going to vote. They take over boards. They've taken over school boards, hospital boards, library boards. This is happening across the country. I think there's a couple of things that makes what's happening in North Idaho interesting, which is the American Redoubt is being watched as a potential domestic terrorist group, and the Lordship Church, which has come after the library, is on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate group watch list, and they're very active in our community. The other thing is our library doesn't have any of the books, well, except for now, Who Was Frederick Douglass, in our collection. So they're not even hiding behind that veneer of it being about banning books. This is about whose stories gets told, what information a community is allowed access to, who's allowed to hold these positions. And they have been very effective. We had lost 2 county commissioner seats, and now there's a write-in campaign against the most radical of one of the commissioners, and we lost